Now, you're asking a good question. So let's just hash a few things out. It's important. First of all, remember that we're not talking about northern hemisphere seasons. We're not talking about northern hemisphere seasons really, because we didn't evolve in the northern hemisphere. We evolved in the equatorial belt, or in the southern hemisphere to equatorial belt. So we're talking about really African seasons. So if we talk through an African season, the way that works is that if we start with summer, right, at this hot, rainy, humid time, and then what happens is that after all the rains and what have you, then the fruits start blossoming on the trees. Now, I'm not saying there aren't summer berries, and I'm not saying there aren't winter berries, but the majority of them start to come out right before the winter. And they all come out before the winter. The plants lose their seeds all over the place. The seeds go into the soil, and they sit and they wait. And then the winter comes. And the winter comes, and the winter means long, dry times, right? Often droughts that might last months or even years sometimes, right? It's not necessarily a 12-month seasonal calendar here. You could have a 6-year drought, and the seeds sit under the soil during that time. And then the rains come. Now you're in spring. When the rains come, the seeds germinate and all the new plants come up. And miraculously, this is really interesting, is that many of the large herd animals, particularly, like I'll use the impala as an example. The impala, they have a breeding season that might last several weeks, but they have a gestation period that in theory would be the same for everybody, except that they all have their babies on the same day. It's like there's a SMS text that goes out. Say, hey, everybody get your baby out, But what they don't have an SMS text, what they have is the rains. They won't drop their babies until the rains start. As soon as the first major rain hits, boom, babies everywhere. Why? A, there's food coming up, right? Because the rains are there. And secondly, because if you have your babies on different days of the week, then the lions go, oh, look, babies to eat on Monday. Oh, look, more babies to eat on Tuesday. But if you have them all on one day, the lions get full and they can't hunt. And that gives those babies an extra day or two to get their full legs, and they can outrun the lions. Just a kind of a fun cycle of the seasons, right? So from our perspective, those are the seasons that we're really talking about. And it's a metaphor. What I mean by that is the spring that you guys are in right now, we in WildFit refer to it as deep spring. In other words, it's a hack. There would never have been in nature a spring as severe as the spring that we're taking you into for as long. There might have been a week or two of it, but it would be unlikely that you would have 3 or 4 or 5 weeks of this deep a spring, because you would have found a root vegetable, right? You would have found, a honey, you would have found a beehive and had some honey. So there would have been some carb intake during a normal spring, but what we're doing for most people is undoing many years of telling the body winter is coming with a much deeper version of spring. Does that make sense?